little-known genius emerged from the Detroit area between the years of 1925 to 1993, who was to make his impact on the Detroit art scene. LeRoy Foster was born on May the 8th, 1925 in Detroit to Marie and Foster Comby. He started drawing at the early age of 5 or 6, and his artistic ability was recognized at Dyer Elementary, Girard Junior High, and Cass Technical High Schools. His level of ability was further accentuated by studies at Cranbrook Institute of Art, the Society of Arts and Crafts under Sarkis Sarkisian, and studies at the Académie de la Grande Chaumière in Paris, France. His international studies were also to include studies at the Heatherley School of Art in London, England, and additional coursework for a short time in Rome, Italy. The desire to share his abilities and talent led LeRoy to return to Detroit to teach part-time at Cass Technical High School and at the Pen and Palette Club for the Detroit Urban League. Never choosing to be the standout that he could have been, LeRoy sought the true freedom that eludes most artists, that being to choose what, when, who, and where to paint. "I'm not starving," explained Foster. "John Quates and a lot of my friends would like to see me rich. It's not a matter of I am good because I have been paid. If I had to do it all over again, I'd do it the same way. There, that's where my arrogance comes from." He had been offered huge sums of money to paint what others wanted to dictate, but he refused and would die penniless at the age of 68. LeRoy's studio was in an old rundown building located on Livernois Avenue on Detroit's west side. An artistic menagerie furnished with used items arranged with the same freedom in which LeRoy lived, eclectic in every way while capturing a sense of theatrical enchantment. The air was filled with mystique. A cat here, a cat over there, fitting in with as much regal splendor as the hanging gold lame would allow. His flair for appearing as though he didn't have a care in the world was juxtaposed by a wood-burning stove, which was his only source of heat, while the plumbing was temperamental at best. His lifestyle was poor by conventional standards, but rich by artistic standards. Considered by many to be the dean of black artists in Detroit, Foster's work is displayed in many prominent institutions in the metropolitan Detroit area. Gracing the lobby of United Community Hospital, formerly Southwest General Hospital, is a mural titled Kaleidoscope. It is a statement of the Spirit of God in each of us that prompts us to search for the best that mankind has to give. It also internalizes a life force that gives us hope, peace, justice, and the pursuit of happiness. The Creator is depicted in the middle, with his hands filled with the web of life. Emanating from this web are the various phases of life, from conception and birth all the way to old age and the borders of death. Graceful and at times childlike, but yet powerful and commanding at the same time, the painting almost exudes the fragrance of the universe. The Millennium artist LeRoy Foster has depicted our present in the mural Renaissance City, with the phoenix rising out of the ashes of the 1967 riot to a city more beautiful than ever. This painting tells the story of a revolution that is going on in the city of Detroit, the rebuilding of the city that was supposed to die, but was brought back with the building of the Renaissance Center. The mural is located in Cass Technical High School in Detroit, Michigan, but hardly any of the students in the school know of the remarkable artist responsible for the mural. The mural is gigantic and consumes you with its vibrant colors and intense proportions. Some of his major works were commissioned in Paris, but Detroit is fortunate to be the location of his most powerful painting, the Frederick Douglass mural, commissioned by the Detroit Public Library. This mural portrays in vivid and compelling colors a scene from Detroit's historical past, where Douglass and the abolitionist John Brown met in Detroit to plot to overthrow Harper's Ferry, a military post in Virginia, to further the cause for freedom from slavery and bondage. The mural is loaded with symbolism, the chains being broken by the powerful figure of a youthful and dauntless Frederick Douglass suggest horrible charms that represent ignorance, violence, and racism. Douglass emerges as the central focal point representing freedom. Dark, shadowy figures adorn the bottom of the painting, showing the horrors of slavery. The mother and child figures show the strength and hope needed for the future. Dr. Charles Wright, who commissioned the painting, provided LeRoy with only 4 images of the men who were present at that meeting along with Douglass and Brown. Looking closely, right in the center, you will find the portrait of the artist himself representing the 5th figure. Gazing over the scene in a massive Zeus-like manner is a very old and dignified figure of Frederick Douglass, looking as if he was carved out of marble. This mural is located in the Frederick Douglass Library in Detroit. LeRoy was to paint portraits of many prominent Detroiters over his career, as well as those of his classmates and friends. One such friend, Helen Ross, who owned the Richmond Cafe on Woodward Avenue, was one of LeRoy's premier patrons. LeRoy would literally work for food and was a frequent patron at Helen's restaurant. Helen was to eventually amass a large collection of LeRoy's works. In 1978, LeRoy created a series of paintings commemorating the 80th birthday of Paul Robeson, one of which he offered to the Detroit Institute of Arts, which declined to display it. They declined possibly because they did not yet recognize this young Black Michaelangelo, as he was called by Dr. Charles Wright, founder of the Museum of African American History and a longtime friend and patron of LeRoy's. Many of LeRoy's works bear a strong resemblance to Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. Having lived a flamboyant lifestyle despite his humble circumstances, LeRoy continued to try and find happiness by throwing parties in his studio. One party in particular had multicolored lights strewn almost haphazardly from anything that would hold them up, replete with extension cords running across a floor puddled with water from a drizzling rain outside. Amazingly, no one was electrocuted. Slowly succumbing to diabetes, LeRoy was cut off financially when then Governor John Engler decided that the state of Michigan no longer needed to support a welfare system. LeRoy's transportation to his tri-weekly dialysis was cut off as a result of the governor's action. Only by a chance visit to LeRoy's studio by Dr. Charles Wright would LeRoy's life be saved. He was found near death and rushed to the hospital. Diabetes was the disease, and LeRoy was its newest victim. He would eventually become totally blind and helpless, aided solely by his longtime friend and fellow artist, Leno Art Jaxon. Leno would care for and manage LeRoy's affairs for the next 6 years. Following the death of LeRoy, Leno would gather together many pieces of LeRoy's artwork and exhibit them in the American Black Artists Museum on West Grand Boulevard, across the street from the Motown Museum. The museum was to be the only place where a collection of LeRoy's work would ever be displayed totally in his honor. After many years of struggling to maintain the museum, Leno was forced, due to financial troubles, to close the doors. The entire collection, valued at $8 million, was donated to the Charles Wright Museum of African American History, but still are not on exhibit. What makes a masterpiece? According to Robert Cummings in his book, Annotated Art, the function and purpose of a major work of art, the expectations that are placed upon it, and the role of the artist are not constant. They vary in different ages and societies, yet a few works stand out because they have the ability to speak of more than their own age, and they offer inspiration and meaning across time. Before the Renaissance, an artist was considered primarily a craftsman, and a masterpiece was the work submitted to the trade guild as proof that the necessary technical skills had been mastered. However, the great masters of the Renaissance proposed that an artist should be judged more by the qualities of intellect and imagination than by manual skill. From delicate female nudes to powerful, almost intimidating male images, LeRoy's work declares him to be ranked among the greatest of the art masters. His massive portraits of Paul Robeson are so filled with life that you almost expect him to step off of the canvas. LeRoy's art possessed all of the qualities that should have allowed them to be hung in the greatest galleries in the world, representing the master that he was. During the lifetime of LeRoy Foster, he was recognized by many of Michigan's top governmental officials. Proclamations by Governor James Blanchard, Detroit Mayor Coleman Alexander Young, State Representative Jack Faxon, United States Congresswoman Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick, and many arts organizations. Posthumously, he was to be recognized for his achievements with proclamations by Wayne County Executive Everett H. McNamara, Detroit Mayor Dennis Archer, Detroit City Council President Mary Ann Mahaffey, and resolutions from Michigan State Representative Hanson Clark and others. LeRoy would possibly have faded into obscurity were it not for the efforts of Leno Art Jaxon. A Senate resolution from the state of Michigan sponsored by Senator Jack Faxon states, "Leno is a gentleman whose dedication and hard work has brought to the art lovers in Michigan the opportunity to view a collection of some of the fabulous works by artists within the state. These works have included pieces by LeRoy Foster, Carl Owens, Oscar Graves, and special guest artist Jack Faxon." Leno Art Jaxon's Art from a Black Perspective was the forerunner of the popular yearly ethnic festivals on Detroit's riverfront. Leno also created and designed the Cultural Opportunity for Direct Exchange program, which successfully brought thousands of Detroit school children and residents together to revel in the arts through special programs, workshops, and visual and performing arts shows. The loyalty shown to his friend LeRoy Foster and display of public service to the Detroit community serves as testimony to the high regard in which he and the American Black Artists Incorporated are held by the members of the legislative body of the state of Michigan, adopted by the Senate February 1st, 1977. Despite all the talent LeRoy possessed, he was not allowed to be recognized as the true master that he was. The galleries that should be filled with his works will forever be incomplete in the eyes of those who knew LeRoy Foster.